We see a lot of fantasy art, and lots of it is fashion because people need to wear something, they need to be dressed in something, usually. They need to have clothing, they need to have armor, they need to have equipment. What makes for a good way to design fantasy fashion? I already spoke about fantasy fashion, but what makes for a good design? What makes for fantasy fashion that is good to view by everyone? What makes for wondrous fantasy fashion rather than gimmicky, bad fantasy fashion that doesn't really speak much for itself except that it screams negative? What makes for beautiful, attractive fantasy fashion? Well, it's pretty simple. It has all the rules of realistic fashion in realistic circles. If you would be proud to wear it, then it's probably good. But it's more to it than that. I'm just giving you a first intro to it by saying it, but now I'll explain. As with everything else, it is supposed to breathe with purpose. It should feel appropriate for what it is. It should take into consideration usage, class, practicality, quality, and so on. Every viewer will recognize fashion that works. Every viewer will recognize fashion that doesn't work, even if they have their pet desires that are not fulfilled or whatever. You know? Some people request it, but that's because they're not the artist. They're not gonna lose when they get it. But you, the DM or the artist of another kind, you will lose when you draw something awful looking. Now, every desire can be fulfilled eventually in some beautiful manner, no matter how conventionally it is said that it's impossible. It's just art. If you're a good enough artist, you will be able to draw something beautiful out of any subject. So before we look at beauty, to become such an artist, you want to design your equipment through the list I mentioned, where it takes into consideration these most important pillars of personal clothing. And that is indeed what can they afford, what they like in their culture to show off to others, as in, are they proud to wear it and why? And you should think from yourself and them so that you don't just invent, oh, they have a crazy culture, don't you know? So they're proud to show off such nonsense. No, people do have some sense of aesthetics. Even regardless of culture, people have some sense of what looks too tacky and stupid and over-designed or under-designed and so on to wear. They don't want to wear something too imbecilic. Yet they'll sometimes agree to wear one or two such things because of their neighbors and their, culture, if such. But you should minimize the damage. But finally, besides all that, there's a final key. Quality of life. That is what makes a fantasy image breathe with beauty to an observer. If the wearer would feel that they have good quality of life wearing it for their purpose, that is to say, their everyday casual clothing, battle clothing, or their ball clothing, whatever the clothing is, as long as there is creature comfort in wearing it, predominantly. Sure, sometimes people wore one or two accessories that were nearly killing them, but it was mostly unnoticeable because of everything else was entirely majestic through evolution of clothes and equipment through years and ages and ages and ages. So to get good fashion design and good fantasy fashion design, you want to be fantastic, you want to be elating, and yet you want to end up on a quality of life note, even if it's contrasted sometimes in your story by a paradox in it. And that is how you get good fantasy clothing and armor and equipment and avoid the bad. I'll show throughout this some good and bad side-by-side examples and such as that. And, well, these are not end of it, but these are only the beginning. I can only do it now that we have artificial art because I didn't want to criticize directly just one living artist, or non-living artist for that matter. I wanted to criticize and praise everyone at the same time. And now I finally have the technology to do it. And so, adventure, if you thought this was useful or unique, maybe you can give me a click. And I could see you here some other week, because every other week I have more such things for you. I'm M. Welcome to dMTable. See you next time.